Greetings and welcome to another podcast. Now, whether you're listening on Spotify, iTunes, whatever podcast platform, or you are watching on YouTube, this is similar to the last time where I had a podcast with professional FIFA player Dr. Nightwatch. So it's not your ordinary episode of the Skill Gap podcast. Don't worry, those haven't stopped. It's just every time I do one of these on the PLB Esports channel, I figured why not share it with you guys here on this platform as well. So today we have Lukasinho, a professional FIFA player. He's also a UEFA A licensed coach, which means he's got some serious footballing credentials in real life. He's also a coach in FIFA. He represents AIK, sorry if you're Swedish and I'm saying that wrong, in FIFA, and lots of great insights from a veteran of the FIFA community. So I hope you guys enjoy the podcast.
Perfect.
Thank you for joining me, Lucas. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Phenomenal? Why?
Because I'm here with you, bro. Like, why else?
This is pretty much the highlight of your week then, I suppose.
For sure. Like, the podcast
Well,
on the PLB channel. But yeah, we like to do this every now and then. Nightwatch was our first guest. Now we get to have you. The whole purpose is because this whole esports initiative is to help, the young talent in Italy, and then in the future also, beyond the country of Italy. And it's just, you're a pro player. You have an extensive history. So did Nightwatch, and so there's a lot of insights. But I feel like there's also an interesting aspect about your pre-FIFA days and how you, because everyone has their different story, and I'm sure there's stuff about your pre-FIFA days that contributed to how you are as a FIFA pro player and shapes kind of like your thinking. So I kind of wanted to start with that. How long have you been playing FIFA? What was your first FIFA game?
I can't remember playing FIFA 97 on the
97.
PC. So I was just like 3 or 4 years old when I first started playing. So I can't really remember that much pre-FIFA days, to be honest. It's just always been such a huge part of my life, buying every version since then. Started playing my first one on the PlayStation 1 back in, I think it was FIFA 2000. Great days, man. Playing career mode those days. All the players had like a fixed price. So it was a lot of fun playing with the Swedish clubs because you could be signing like Ronaldo to a Swedish club if you sold enough players. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. I remember that.
Yeah, for sure. I think mine was FIFA 2001 on the PC, but I didn't even play myself. I would just watch my brother play. And I just remember being excited. He'd be playing career mode, like you said, and he'd be Roma. And then when it was Roma Lazio, I was like nervous. I was like, you better win this. But
I remember that playing against my dad in 2001 because Lazio was pretty big in Sweden back then because Svennis was the coach.
Yeah.
So that's where there are a lot of Lazio supporters in Sweden.
There's actually a lot, or is it only like...
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
It's a popular club. The Italian league isn't that big here, but to the ones who do like it, Lazio is a big club. I remember my dad always playing with Lazio. Those were the days.
If I had to play with my dad or my brother, one of us would have to be on the keyboard, and it was pain. Like playing FIFA on the keyboard, I don't think people will understand. But on that game, it was possible because all I did was I went down the wing with Totti, and I'd cross it to Batistuta, and he'd bicycle kick, and it would work every single time.
I still remember the controls.
Yeah?
Like you were shooting on D, I think, and then S was the short pass, A was like a cross. So
yeah.
Now. And W was the through ball, I think, or you were running fast on W. I can't remember. And you had to spam it. Back then, you couldn't really hold it. You had to spam the button to sprint. I don't know if you remember that at all. I think it was triangle, like back on FIFA 2001 or something.
Yeah,
just spammed it, and then those were the days.
All right, yeah, fun times. But I don't think that would go if that was the meta nowadays. We'd be happy. I mean, FIFA 19 didn't go down too well for the crossing. What about your in real life experience with the actual sport of football? Did you play? If yes, like what positions?
Yeah, I'm one of the few who actually dare to admit that I was shit
Yeah.
I was always more in love with the game itself than playing it.
Yeah.
Watching, my dad always took me to games when I was a kid. I always used to watch Premier League, like that was the highlight of the week when I could just sit down an entire Saturday and just watch Premier League. Also played a lot of handball. I was a lot better in handball than football. And my family's always been like a huge handball family. I don't even know if you know what that is.
Of course. Yeah, I know what handball.
Yeah, I do. So we used to play that a lot. But I was never very good. Like my dad was the coach. We, would be in lines pretty much shooting from a pass, and that's all we did. I did play as a winger. I switched teams when I was in my early teenagers, like when I was 13 maybe, and started developing physically. So I started getting some pace to my game, and I thought it was a lot more fun playing. But then I quit a year later because my coach, he was horrible. I remember I laughed at him because he would always play with us, and I hated that. And because he was an adult, he was an adult, and he would never be on my team, and he always played in the opposite team, and he was always in my position. So if I was a striker, he was a center back. If I was in the midfield, he was in the midfield, and he would tackle me from behind and like do weird stuff, and so he took a shot at goal from like the halfway line. He missed it, and I started laughing at him, like you do, to kind of, it was weird. Anyways, so he lifted me up in my shirt, and he was like, "What the fuck are you laughing about?" And then he threw me to the ground. I was 13, and that was a shocker. So I quit after that. It was just like, no. So but I kept on playing handball. But then I started playing like Sunday League a few years ago. But I've just felt like since my coaching is taking up so much time, it's not been possible to be as fit as you want to be.
Yeah.
Because we've been quite competitive. So I've been coaching now for 7 years. 13 to 15-year-olds only, pretty much. And it's what I want to do.
That's crazy. No, I feel that for the coach. I've had some bad coaches here and there, and like I feel even in school, I feel like there's a lot of people who get into it who don't realize the impact like they could have on people, whether it was school teachers or coaches. I know exactly who I have bad memories with and good memories with, and who made it like unbearable. I think my coach when I was my last team I played with, it was really weird. Like I had a good season and that was a good time, but the moment I stepped down like a little bit, and it wasn't even my fault per se, it was due to an injury, it was awful. I was like, this is okay. Like, the saying, if you don't like me when I'm this, you don't deserve me when I'm here. So that's how I felt. It was awful. But I find that interesting that you played winger because I said this last time as well when I asked Nightwatch, but I remember sometimes I see a lot of similarities between people's styles and where they prefer to play in real life. And you play a lot of very fast FIFA style. You have pace, and you're just counterattacking. You are the counterattacking old school player. So it's like it always leads back to that.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it was the way I used to be playing. I remember like preparing for games, just playing like pro clubs. This was before like you could create your own player and stuff, but you would control like Ronaldo and just play 11v11 and just try to play in your own position in FIFA. I remember doing that before games. But then once I got older, like now, I mean, like I could definitely lose a few kilos. I don't really have that pace
We're all
anymore.
there. I mean, the young kids don't understand it, but when
no.
At a certain point, they'll know. They'll
know. So in the Sunday League, I've pretty much been playing a defensive midfielder and a center back. I do talk a lot during the game with my teammates, so I'm always yelling out instructions even when playing. So I like to see everything in front of me. So especially being like a center back, kind of being like a supportive center back in a 3 or 5 back at the back suits me perfectly. So that's been a lot of fun when been playing that. But I feel like I'm just going to focus on my coaching from now on.
Yeah. Before we get into that, you said you watched the Premier League with your father. Is that why you're a Chelsea fan? Like, was there a specific moment that was like, this is my team?
I mean, I can't really say. I kind of want to say that it grew on me. because I've always liked the blue colors, you know, and that's why when people ask me why I'm a Chelsea fan, I say because of the colors. And I mean, it's all connected with Mourinho coming, and he was so charming, you know, and people were in love with him, you know, and he was invincible back then. You know, I mean, he hadn't lost at home in like 10 years, you know. And he had this sort of arrogance to him, but he was also winning, which was really, really cool. And I remember when I was growing up, at least Ronaldinho, he was the best player in the world, and then you had Kaká coming on later. But back then, I wasn't really when all the kids were trying to imitate a player on the schoolyard, in the schoolyard. I would try to be the coach, and I just wanted to be Mourinho, you know. So I was playing a lot of Football Manager. We're talking like even Championship Manager, 03, 04, when I was like 9, 10 years old. Just trying to organize my tactics and sign players. I love that part of the game rather than more than playing it. So that's why, and yes, that's why I became a Chelsea fan. And I also love John Terry and Frank Lampard, the way they've been representing Chelsea. I mean, to me, they will always be the greatest players, you know, because you have that kind of like connection when you're a kid that doesn't really go away. It's not like I have that feeling with any of the players in the Chelsea team now, even though you have the likes of Mason Mount, for example. And I love Mason Mount. He's an absolutely fantastic player. But it's just not the same as that you were feeling like when you were a kid and you would see a Lampard score like a free kick from 35 yards out.
I think, that obviously comes with the territory of growing up with those players. I have the same feeling with Totti and De Rossi. Like, I was lucky to grow up with them. So, like, at the moment, nothing comes near Roma and those guys. But my dad didn't grow up with them, but he still has a similar feeling with Totti. So I think it's just a matter of time. Like, if Mount develops into what he could, maybe one day you'll be like, yeah, this is like one of the flags of.
I mean, like, I would say now he's definitely in the top 10 in the Premier League. The way he's playing, he's he does all the things that you don't think about if you don't look at him all the time. And I'm not talking about his work ethic off the ball and stuff like that. I'm talking about his intelligence. He's so quick, even though he's not really a quick player in that sense, but he's just so skilled in finding the path. I'd love to talk more about that. And I'm sure we will when we talk about FIFA. But like the way we do it in Oiko, for example, the club that I'm working in, like, we don't really work on a game model or anything like that when they're kids, you know, because there's no point in doing that. So we try to teach them the game rather than a game model. That's what we say, at least. So we divide it up into 3 different stages, because like in attack, you want to get behind the defenders, right? That's what you want to do. So you could do this in 3 ways. You could play through them, you can play around them, and you can play over them. So if you teach the players in all 3 of these basic like principles in the game, they will start noticing these things even in the Premier League. So if you look at a team coached by Guardiola, for example, they're so good at playing the ball through their opposition to try to get in behind. And if they can't do that, they open up the wide option to try to stretch the team, you know, the defense, to then try to play it through, and even leaving the option to play over at all times. But Mason Mount, he's so great at positioning himself, being turned like halfway with his shoulder behind the midfield, and then turning on his one touch and then accelerating into full speed right away. I think he's the best player in the Premier League when it comes to that, and that's why he's so skilled. I don't think people notice that how much of a tempo he has in his feet.
Well, yeah, I mean, in sports in general, there's so much that goes unnoticed. I think what makes the headlines and the comments and like the conversations is like the tip of the iceberg, which is why a lot of players are super underrated. By the way, I'm seeing comments about I'm fifth. My idols are Totti and De Rossi, therefore that's why I'm slow. I don't know why this meme has started that I'm slow in football. And also, Totti was not slow. It's just, you know, you kids saw him when he was 40 years old. So
I like to see your face when you're 40. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, even Zlatan Ibrahimovic, he was like a speedy striker, like a thin, tall.
They don't remember striker. That guy was a freak at young ages. But what I wanted to ask you before I also got into the coaching is because I feel like a lot of people disrespect Mourinho now that he's on a downtrend compared to like his standards. And I feel like there's factors that contribute to that because now he's struggling. Obviously, he's not getting the results he was when you first fell in love with him. But like, what would you attribute that to, right? Because he's it's still Mourinho.
I think it's a difficult question. And I've been thinking about it a lot. And first of all, I don't share the analysis that he's been failing. He's not been as dominant as he was in Chelsea, Real Madrid, Inter, and even Chelsea in his second spell. And even Man United finishing second with that squad.
Europa League win as well. Like,
yeah, I mean, absolutely insane. I love that commercial. I don't know if you saw it when he's like, not all great things lead to trophies or something like that. And then he was pointing at the table where they finished second. Anyways, I think he has some difficulties in his leadership. I've been reading a lot of biographies about Mourinho and the way that he influenced the dressing room, the locker room. And I do think that there is a different mentality in the players these days. And that's something that I see every day, is that the players at the very top level today, their number one focus is not at winning football games. I don't think so. I don't think that when Pogba enters the pitch, his number one focus is to win the game. I don't think so. And that's something that you see in a lot of the younger players today, where they feel like succeeding in football isn't necessarily winning. And I think this is a clash with Mourinho because he's the complete opposite. And I think he's having some issues, kind of bonding with these players of the new generation. I think that's one thing. People might say that he's tactically, he's a tactical dinosaur. I don't think that's the case. But I do think that he's had a hard time adapting, obviously, as the offensive players have gotten so much better, even in the past 10, 15 years. So it might be too difficult to defend your way because the tempo is so much higher. If you turn on a game that was being played 15 years ago, let's say you watch Porto Man United from 2004 or whatever, right? You're going to notice a significant difference in the quality of the game. So I do think that the game in itself has changed a lot, and the defensive players are so much better. And to be playing the way that Mourinho has been, he's been a very offensive coach in Real Madrid, in Inter, and even in Chelsea. You might not always see that in the Champions League, but his teams have always been scoring a lot of goals. And when you have players that are better offensively, it's difficult to not concede as much. It's difficult to defend not to concede as few goals as Chelsea were, for example, back in his first spell. So that's what I think.
No, yeah, that's a good point, especially for someone like him who I think he depends a lot on his relationship with his players. If he can't bridge the gap between like the changes in the generation and how the new players, because I think he said that publicly multiple times. Like he talked, I've seen him say, when he was coaching Lampard, he was a man at 23, and now he's 23-year-olds are there. So it's like, it's harder for him to get there. But I imagine that's
I mean, exactly. And that's why I think it's difficult to be even a leader in a dressing room today, and why you need to scout so much more than you think.
You might want to find old souls, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like, to a coach, you would love to have a player as Frank Lampard. And if you think back about it, like, that old Chelsea team was all winners, all they cared about was winning. And if you look back at Sir Alex Ferguson and his success, it all came down to the loyalty and their mentality. And those players today are clashing with the new generation, who I think care more about their own brand. I would even put Zlatan Ibrahimovic in there. He cares more about his personal brand than winning, but he still performs, but so does Pogba. But having a team like that is going to be difficult if you have players who care more about other things than winning. And especially when they don't care about being skilled defensively. We talk a lot about this, at least in Oikoa. When we're looking at our 14, 15-year-olds, if do we really think that they see defending as a skill? I don't think that they do. And do we think that they feel like they can be successful in their defending? And I think that's a huge problem, where we lack a lot of quality when it comes to our defending, at least in Sweden. I mean, we're one of the most defensive nations I know, but we could be so much better. I feel like the focus in general in football, even at a very, very top level, is not where it should be.
Fair enough. And obviously, you will be able to relate more than most to any coach, because if people didn't know, you're a UEFA A licensed coach, correct?
Yeah.
That's crazy, because I was curious. I was like, what does this mean? So I started snooping around, and these are pretty impressive qualifications. I mean, first things first, how do you even get to be a UEFA A licensed coach?
Okay, so the way it works is, at least in Sweden, I mean, most of the European countries have the same system. It's called UEFA A, B, C. So what you do first is you get your UEFA C license, which is basically your very basic, like, okay, don't yell at the kids. Try not to, throw throw-ins for 90 minutes when you're having a practice. It's just useless, waste of time, Yeah. But the FA, the Swedish FA, they can charge money for it to the club, so they'll take it. And the clubs, they want, educated coaches on paper at least. And then you can get the FFB license, which is still a very basic level, and then you have the advanced level. So I was using I went to school during the old system in Sweden, so you have like the basic and then the advanced. So I was actually studying at our what do you call it, like our athletic university here, or college. So I was studying for a year, and we would do it every Wednesday for like 8 hours, just football. So we were playing, and then we had some theory, and then you would get your license afterwards, which is a shortcut, because in most countries in Europe, this is really difficult, like even getting the chance to get that kind of a license. So the FIA is the second highest license that you can have as a coach. So the next one that I'm aiming to get is the pro license, but I think only like 24 coaches a year get the chance to do that in Sweden. So I've told myself since I started, like, I want to try to get it before I'm 30. Turning 27 this year, so it's looking tough, but we'll see. It's a goal I have, at least.
That's crazy. And now you said, I think it was, I don't know, it might have been off stream, but you're coaching in the bracket of 13 to 15. Now, I also have a friend in real life who has done a lot of coaching. He played at a very high level when he was younger, but then he transitioned into coaching later on. He personally says, oh no, I much rather coach 15 and above. How are you with that? Do you find yourself easier to coach with the kids when they get a little bit older and they're a bit more serious, or are you fine with like any age group?
I mean, working with 13, 14-year-olds is probably the most difficult thing you can do. I mean, they have so much going on. There's so much status within the group, and they start questioning stuff, like if you're coaching 10, 11-year-olds, so you love coming down. They're happy all the time. They talk to you. They're happy to see you. A 13-year-old will not look you in the eyes, when he comes down. It'll just spread negative energy everywhere. That's what a 13-year-old is like. And that's what I was like when I was 13, 14 as well. So it's a really difficult age. But what I do like about it is that you can kind of shape them. There's still plenty to learn. They're still, they're past their technical golden age, but that's where you start, training game sense and tactics. And I love being in that age and trying to, see some of the new talents coming forward, and especially, the teams that you're playing against. You don't have to use that advanced tactics to get a lot out of advantages in the game. So I like coaching that age, but I obviously want to progress in the future. But I feel like I'm 26 right now, and I'm not in a hurry. I definitely want to be, at the highest level within coaching. I mean, I'm gonna try to win the Champions League one day. That's what I'm actually trying to do. That's my goal. I mean, you live once. You can. Yeah. You only get one shot at it, and I'm gonna take it. So what I'm doing right now is perfectly fine for me. I'm learning a lot from the club, and It's I get to work like 50% as a coach, and then I have FIFA for the rest if I want to, where I can work as much as I want to. But even like this morning, for example, like we had a full pitch, and you get to work with players, you get to prepare everything, set everything up for 90 minutes, and just give it all for 90 minutes, and then you come home, give an interview like this, and then we have another session tonight. So I just love it. You know, it's a privilege to be working with football. You know, you don't really get this opportunity everywhere.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's something a lot of people could be interested in, but don't even know how to get into, which is a perfect time to, I think a viewer asked, what would your typical training session look like with the oldest, I guess, group?
Yeah, I think I can explain it again. But as we want to, it doesn't really matter what age, you know, like I can tell them all sorts of things on a board. You know, when we get out on the pitch, it's completely different, and they have to make decisions in a microsecond. So you need to be working with principles, right? So the principles that we're using is to try to get them behind the opposition. We want to do that through playing through, over, and around. And our first priority should obviously be to try to play it through and be in a central position, and then we can try to play it around. And then our third option should probably be to play it over. But playing it over could be a really good thing, especially if they're pressing really high up. You want to put it over and behind. But so what I try to do is I focus the defensive part of the game and the offensive part in the same drill. So let's say you're starting off with a rondo. You have 6 players, or let's say we have 9 players in a rondo. You split them into 3 teams. One team is pressing. So remember what I was talking about when it came to feeling successful in defending. So what I do is that I only award the defensive team points. So you're not getting any points through just passing the ball around in the rondo, but if you get 2 minutes to win the ball as many times as you can. So I want to teach the kids that they can be successful in defending, and I want them to be working hard for it as well. So I give them a chance to defend for 2 minutes, get the ball as many times as they can in 2 minutes. And if the offensive team is playing the ball through the 3 defenders in the rondo, I reset the points. So I would do that for like maybe 15 minutes, and then try to work in a game, pretty much like a smaller game, maybe 3v3, 4v4s with different what we call constraints in the game. So similar things, you know, if you don't turn on your first touch, you have to play back to the defender. So let's say you're coming to face the ball as a midfielder. If you don't turn on your first touch, just knock it back off. And stuff like that. And then use the same principles in a bigger game later on in the session. So a lot of playing time with having the bigger principles in mind.
No, sounds great. Sounds great. So you obviously have a lot in real life coaching. Love the game when you were young. Played football, but also played FIFA. In those games, or in those days, which shaped who you are today, was there any hint of PES? Because a lot of people played PES a lot. Were you a lover of the old school ones?
I played the 4, 5, and 6. Great games. I mean, we all mentioned Adriano from PES 6, right? But even Henry I think it was PES 5 with John Terry and Henry on the cover. Great players, great games as well. I mean, I can't really say that I was analyzing the game a lot back then.
You just had
I
fun.
definitely enjoyed it. I just had fun with it. I played against my brother a lot. I mean, we would have games, Man United against Chelsea. You know, he was a Man United fan, I was a Chelsea fan, and both teams pretty much being in their prime. Always with that battle going on PES. So I love that. This was before online gaming. So, I mean, I didn't really have any friends who loved video games as much as I did. They liked football or video games, but never both of them. So that was kind of a weird mix. But yeah, love the PES.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you if you were, because now obviously you have reached like the peak of level, especially depending on the year more than others. But I was going to ask you if you were the best amongst your friends. But I mean, you were? Just naturally?
I mean, I was always pretty good, and I was always so competitive. I mean, like I think one of the reasons that I'm really, really good at FIFA and most video games is that I really can't stand losing. I get so mad. I know a lot of people say that they can't stand losing, but like this is another level. I just hate it so much. And I mean, coming with that background, I would just always analyze my mistakes after a game. You know, even back in like FIFA 08, 9, 10, 11. Even though it was a super competitive back then, just having fun online and playing head-to-head games was a lot of fun. But it was back in like FIFA 12. That's when the season started, and we started getting the skill-based matchmaking online with the divisions. So I just Googled, like FIFA tournament Stockholm, where I live, and I saw that there was going to be like a Swedish championship. So I tried it, and I lost in the semi-final eventually that year in FIFA 12. Guess against who?
I mean, it's the old school. It's either Skoldy or Boris.
It was Boris, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Skoldy, he tried it out, but he didn't get through to the playoffs. So I lost against Boris. He was playing a 5-2-1-2. He was playing Real Madrid.
Oh no, he was playing 5 at the back. All right.
Yeah, he was doing it way before he was cool. And he had Higuain as his right wing back, and he has someone really weird. I think it might have been Callejon as his left wing back, and then he was using Pepe Ramos and maybe it was Contra. I can't remember.
Higuain at wing
back. He had Higuain at wing back, so you could mention that next time you talk to him. But I was playing Chelsea, and this was the year that Chelsea won the Champions League. I mean, the team was shit in FIFA, though. Like, if I would have been playing Real Madrid, I think I would have beaten him. But I lost in the semi-final against him. And then it just kept on going from there. And I used to play a lot on Virgin Gaming, which was a site where you pretty much played for money. And you would have a rank on the page. And back then, there weren't really that many great FIFA players, even in Europe. So you would just bet money against each other. And that triggered you even more to get better, because I was going through like high school and even the university during this time, and I made quite a lot of money just through cash games back then. Head-to-head cash games, no pay to win, nothing like that. Just a lot of fun, and it really helped you develop, because you were always focusing and always analyzing everything so you could make more money, right? So that's I was probably at my peak around there. FIFA 13, 14, I would definitely say I can't see anyone else being better than me than I was at that game. I was so damn good on FIFA 14. And then I think the PS4 came, and FIFA 15, that's when it kind of died out in Sweden. FIFA 16 too, no tournaments. I wasn't really playing that much. Just a few tournaments, and then FUT Champions came in FIFA 17, and I noticed that I was finishing like top 25 every weekend, and I was like, I was ready to give my FIFA career up, because there were no tournaments. And then it's when EA started, stepping up, and I finished second in the world in the November month, I think. Yeah. So I qualified for Paris as one of, I think we were 16 players in total, but only 12 players went through in the leaderboard. So you had to be top 12 monthly in your region to get through. And then I came to Paris, and number 1, 2, 3 on the leaderboard got seated in the same group. Yeah. So it was me. What was it called? He was called Bruma by then. What's it called? Aigun, the Dutch player. And then Chian, German player, who eventually won the entire thing on PlayStation. And then you had the French PS4 champion that won like a wild card to the tournament. 4 of us in one group, best of 1 game. You got to play 3 games. You started at 8 in the morning in Paris, and then 45 minutes later, I was knocked out. Such a crazy format. People are complaining these days about the format. It was so bad back then. And then I qualified for Munich and stuff. But I mean, then FIFA 18 came, and I just hated that game, and that's when it started going downhill, right?
For sure, dude. I remember those 17 tournaments because I really, really had fun watching them. But I always thought, like, yo, this is harsh. Like, you fly all the way here and you have, like, a World Cup style. It's like the World Cup in football. You play your opponent once, but it's 90 minutes. Like, it's a lot more in real life. You have 50-minute games, best of 1. I was like, this is terrible, man. Especially
Nah,
the playoffs, man. Everyone who made it out of those and made it to the playoffs, it was the same format in playoffs. Imagine
yeah,
getting to the playoffs, you get knocked out in 45 minutes in the group. No, man.
it was
That's
it was crazy, and especially like I lost the first game 2-1 because he
yeah.
scored 2 goals on corners, and the second
Yeah.
one he scored in the 92nd minute.
Yeah.
And I lost the first game in a group stage. It's pretty much over unless you
Yeah.
win 2 other games. So because of those 2 corners, I mean, it'll cost me a lot of money and probably prestige and possibly even contracts.
A lot of clout. Those tournaments blew people up like I've never seen.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun though going there, but I definitely felt like I was a lot better than my results in that tournament. I failed to qualify for the Spanish, the one in Madrid. I think it was Madrid that year. It was
Yeah.
Barcelona, maybe.
It was
I
Madrid,
know
yeah.
it was Madrid. Yeah, I was 1 win away, and I think I lost like 6 games on penalties that month, which was kind of harsh too. But during the meantime, I became a Scandinavian champion too,
Yeah.
beating great players. So that was probably the peak of my career. I was really, really good back then. I had a lot of fun playing, and there was a lot of traveling that year. I got to go to Vancouver. It was very exclusive. I think it was me, Boras, and Mike and Aga. We went to Vancouver, the four of us, before FIFA 18. And if you did not like FIFA 18, you should have seen the game in this alpha stage. If somebody lifted a through ball, like an L1 triangle ball, you could not sprint with your defender.
Oh,
So
no.
you would just pass it over to your striker, and he would like outrun the defender because you couldn't sprint. And I was like, hey guys, we got this problem here. I can't sprint with my defender. And they were like, oh, okay, we'll take a look at that. So it's a mess. Like when you go down and you play the versions, like alpha versions of the game is so broken that you don't even have time to talk about the foundation, the basics of football that are not in the game. There's just so much to say about the game, but they want you to be looking for bugs, and they just have this very different vision to what FIFA should be than most of us who are thinking about the game do.
Yeah. How was I mean, I don't know how much you can say, but like how was that experience in general of going to Vancouver? Nice place. And then like was it because you mentioned that, was it actually satisfying to like help, or was it more like you said, because you can't even get to the nitty gritty of what you want to talk about, it was a bit frustrating to sort of play
It's,
that
it's,
early version?
it's amazing. I mean, I'm very grateful to get the opportunity to do that. It's frustrating and nice at the same time.
Yeah.
I love to hear about everything, but I do realize at the same time that I don't have any power whatsoever to change this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's all coming down to how good I am at debating this, and my opinion is worth as much as any random person who's buying the game because they want to make money, and which is not that great. So like I remember when they told me before I went there again before FIFA 20 with a lot of other game changers, and they were saying like, hey, we want to try to slow the gameplay down a little bit. We want it to be more realistic. That's
Hmm.
their approach to the game. I mean, I don't want to say too much, but their mentalities, they want it to be very realistic. But I'm like, yeah, you can do that all you want when it comes to the tempo, but people are still finishing first post, and they have been for the last 4 years. So don't come here and say that you want this game to be realistic if people are still finishing first post. It's absolutely ridiculous, and nobody's even mentioning. I haven't seen anything on Twitter this year about anyone criticizing first post finishing, for example. It's one of the biggest problems in the game right now. That's why it's impossible to be defending most of the time. I mean, like, I don't care about the AI blocks and stuff. I mean, that happens in real life. You shoot in front of a defender, he's going to block it most of the time. But a shot in the first post should not go in. It's easy
Yeah.
as that.
There's a lot of angles, and I remember how upset I was about it last year.
Yeah. Before
But
FIFA 20, right?
oh yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it changes the scope of defending to a level that is unimaginable. But I think A lot of people don't mention it because they don't view it as an actual like sport of football. It's like, get the ball in there, that's the video game, right? And I find it funny because they want to slow the game and make it realistic, which is fair enough. That's their target, to make the best simulation they can. But the irony of the matter is that because a lot of people tell me, Stallion, what do you want, arcade or simulation? And I'm like, it's not black or white, because at the end of the day, we used to have more arcadey games in terms of speed and just the feel, but they were more realistic in execution. These games might be slower, but the execution of what you need to do is more arcade than it's ever been. So I feel like
it's not about that. Like, people are focusing on animations. Oh, you should not be shooting that way. Like, it's not about that. It's about, like, is this a good position to be shooting? You're turned the wrong way and you're shooting first post. Nobody's even saying anything about that. We're talking about like passes going straight through the midfield. Like, the AI is absolutely ignoring it, and then everyone's like, AI defense is OP. No, it's not. They're useless when it comes to intercepting passes and stuff. And as you're saying, even though the animations might look worse back in FIFA 17, for example, it's just way more realistic in the way that it plays, because you couldn't just bang it in the first post. The goalkeeper would save it, which led to the defending being very different to what it is right now. And just that sole reason makes FIFA 17 a whole lot more realistic than FIFA 21. Just because of that tiny little thing. It could be patched. You could patch it right now, and FIFA 21 would change so much.
For sure. In those years, because obviously the game was a lot faster. So even in your peak, obviously you said you had a couple of peaks. The Nordic Championship might have been like, you would say, your biggest achievement, but arguably, potentially, you could have won something even bigger in 14 if there was like the actual like format. If you were that, like, because a lot of people have way more opportunities now. Back then, it was a lot different, as you described it as well. What kind of formations were you running? Were you running anything different? Boris, you said, had the 5 at the back those days. Were you running like I don't know?
I think FIFA 12, I was running with Diamond. It was a ping pong game. It was very, very good to be doing that. And you also had the speed glitch back then, which you would call crab walking now, but it worked very differently back then, because you would get such a speed boost that you wouldn't be able to stop the player. So if you crab walked one way and then you went that way, it's impossible to stop that player. So if you had a player like Cristiano Ronaldo, there was no way you're going to stop him. And then, I was playing that formation sometimes, even in FIFA 13, but then I went with 4-2-3-1, as most players did, and even the 4-3-3 offensive formation. It's very similar. And then in FIFA 17, I was playing with the Christmas tree.
I love that one. I love that formation.
It was so nice, especially with Team of the Young Modric in the middle. It was amazing. Love that formation back then. I even played it when I got my 30-0 this year on my road to glory. I remember. Yeah. No, I think it was the second week, and I played that formation. But I mean, this 4-2-3-1 these days is 4-4-2. I've never liked that formation, but
same.
It's just I just get so like I don't even know where to start when I see the 4-4-2 working out the way it's being played in FIFA 21, because it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The way people are playing it, it's just so stupid. A 4-4-2 possession-based game. We just pass it back to the defense. Oh my god, I don't even know where to start. And then one of the worst things about this game is the way it's just man marking. I know I've mentioned this to you before. Past 2 games or even 3 games, the game has kind of turned into this man marking system. Whereas in the older games, you would feel the zonal difference. So in some of the clips that I've been uploading on Twitter, you could see like my player just running out of nowhere just to try to mark someone. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I want my 4 at the back. I want it to be very solid. I don't want them to move unless I move them myself. And it just doesn't work that way, because it's such a man marking system. And for example, if you try to counterattack and you play the ball to your striker and you're in a 2v2 situation, right? So one player would run all the way back to your goalkeeper and one would press the ball holder. they're like 30 yards apart. The center backs, and you can't play through to the striker because the AI is gonna mark your runner in behind, and you're just putting pressure on this guy, and you can't get out of the pressure because there's no skill move to create any space for yourself whatsoever anymore. It's just so stupid. This entire system, just pushing up with a center back while the other one drops. Doesn't make any sense.
It's spot on, and it's why everything plays into each other. I make a lot of videos on like things that I think are wrong, but like I said before, the only reason I keep it to one topic per video is for visibility purposes, because if I put everything, it would be like too like if I said this is what I want to change, but a lot of people always say, oh, but you say this but not that. I was like, of course, it goes without changing. You have to change 7 things, but I'm doing this to get as many views as possible because otherwise you wouldn't care. And the man marking, the zonal feel, that plays into the meta, right? You don't have second man press, the guy with the ball has so much power, and the guy with the ball knows that eventually your defense is gonna go haywire. And I had a clip where they don't switch. They don't even need to switch. They just need to stay where they are. And like you said, I'll move you. That's why the 4-3-2-1, one of the reasons, was much more usable in 17 because you felt compact because of the zonal defense. Now you play 4-3-2-1. Your left center mid and right center mid are playing with the fullback. You're like, you feel naked at the back. It's like, what are you gonna do? It completely changes the scope, and everything plays into that 4-4-2. That's why you play 4-4-2 possession, 4-2-3-1 possession, 4-1-2-1-2 possession. It's all possession because you just play for the rig. You just hold the ball until the opening.
You're just waiting for an AI mistake. That's all you're doing. And people are trying to call this game competitive, and you can practice as much as you want. But when you're sitting there and you're playing a top tier game, and the AI is making a mistake for you, or you can't even move your players because the connection is so bad, what are you going to do? You can practice all you want. You can't get that away from the game.
Yeah, I was going to ask you this later, but might as well do it now. In terms of when the new game changes, right? Every year, because a lot of people go up and down depending on the game because it makes sense. Every game has a lot of differences, and so it's not like the game of football, which, you can have changes in how football is played 15 to 20 years ago, but someone who's good is going to be good, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you take a Lampard, he's good every era. Yeah. Like, it's just, he's good at football. There's a lot more things that will never change. Whereas FIFA 17 to 18 to 19 to 20 to 21, there's a lot of paradigm shifts. I know a lot of people like to say that the top pros will always win, and I think to an extent that's true. But as someone at that level, what's your take on when the game changes? Do you think that there are things that lead to a paradigm shift in who's better and who's worse?
I mean, I think it's easy. Like, when you look back at my career, back then it used to take years to get great at the game because we're talking about like game sense, we're talking about speed, we're talking about unpredictability. And right now you're seeing so many players just coming out of nowhere. I have a teammate, Tom Dysett. He's one of the best players in Europe. He's finishing like top 40 in every qualifier on Xbox. He plays for Oiko. And a year ago, he wasn't even a gold 1 player. A year ago. 4 months later, he gets 119 out of 120 in the weekend league. We're talking about 3 or 4 months from not even being a gold 1 player into winning pretty much every game in the weekend league. And I think that tells you a lot. And you see all these new players coming from absolutely nowhere. And they're just doing so great in the tournaments because they've learned one skill move. Or because they've learned how to press down on a touchpad and then left with the right timing. It's stupid. It just didn't used to be that way. It used to be about skill and just micromanaging everything quick. I mean, the player switching, we haven't even talked about how they completely ruined it in FIFA 19. I think a lot of people have forgotten about how great the player switching used to be. It's absolutely terrible right now. And I think it's just because it's so easy to get good at the game. So you see new players all the time. Even Tex isn't even in the top tiers anymore. It's not because he's a shit FIFA player. It's because the game changes and the younger players have a lot of easier time learning the new technical things. Because FIFA used to be a tactical game. It used to be about movement, passing, and making the right decisions. Today, it's about technique. How good are you at using the stick and using the right skill moves? You see like 2 skill moves a game. In real life, you see 2 minutes a minute in the game. Stupid.
Yeah, I saw I saw a goal. I don't remember who scored it, but the La Liga, they post highlights. It ended up on my timeline. This guy scored a goal from the byline with R9, and he did like 5 or 6 canceled croquetas in a row to get there's 0 passes in this play. So he starts, it just goes around, and back, and then he has the angle to shoot. And I think that speaks volumes to the younger generation. All the comments were like, "Oh, that's insane. What are you doing?" And I'm like, look, I'm not saying my opinion is better than yours or that or that. I'm just saying I come from a different time, so I'm not going to be impressed by that. And I understand there's a generational shift. And a lot of these kids are coming into these games having only played these games, right? And it's one thing to add mechanical skill gap. I think like, a game like Fortnite on PC as well, which I know you played a lot of the year you took a break from FIFA. Yeah. There's a huge mechanical skill gap in that, right?
That's a technical game. It's very different.
Very technical. But even once you get that skill, it doesn't mean anything if you don't execute it. You can be the best, the fastest builder, but there's still an element of that. I think FIFA used to be great because, like, when you play a game like chess, right? Chess, disgusting skill ceiling, skill gap, ability, but it doesn't take a very skilled surgeon to move a pawn, right?
No.
Like, it's not mechanical skill, it's intelligence, it's decoys, it's outsmarting. Game. And so there was a lot of tactical aspect to FIFA, and it's gone. And that's why you say it takes less to be good at this game, because you don't need the game sense. You need the execution of certain skill moves after you get yourself in a position which is already very easy to get in, which is why I don't understand the point that a lot of people say that age matters in FIFA. I mean, it does and it doesn't. Like, now it does, right? Yeah. Because now if you're younger, you don't know all the things that we, practice and hone.
You have the advantage being young today.
Yeah, but people make it out like if you're too old, you're done, can't teach it.
It's not about that.
But it's more like, so I wanted to see your take as well on the whole age thing.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting because, like, Tom, the teammate Dysek that I was telling you about, he was watching my stream when I got 30 out of 30, and he was like, "It's so interesting to watch you play because it doesn't look like you're good, And what he means by that is, I'm not abusing any skill moves. I'm not abusing any other thing. Like, he said, like, I can't really pinpoint what you're good at, and I think that says a lot about his perspective on the game. I'm not saying he's wrong, but, like, I'm playing against them in their game. I mean, it's a technical game. I'm still playing my tactical side. So I think it's amazing just getting a 30 just by passing. I mean,
incredible.
Sometimes I, even with Immobile up front, Yeah. And I mean, sometimes I'll be lucky and just do something with my right stick. It's not on purpose, but I score a goal, But it's just based on passing and pressing, even though the game is doing everything in its power to just force me not to and just head into the technical side of the game. But it's just so different, and I don't think that a lot of people see this. But it's also, it's an easy come, easy go situation. Yeah, you can get through you can get really far in a tournament, in FIFA 21 now by learning to step over. Oh, they patched it. You're not in there anymore, So, I mean, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of, shifts at the top, and we're still seeing that. I think it's just one player who's gone into the top 6 in every qualifier so far. I think that says a lot about the game,
For sure. I find it that, how do I put this? Maybe that's an off-stream comment, but what I also found interesting about your story is that you took a break in FIFA 18. I remember when you did that, I was jealous in the sense that, like, I wanted to do that, because to have the balls to do that when you love to do what you do is crazy, because you then came back and, you fought through 19, 20, and 21, which, haven't really been improvements either. But you stepped away from that game in a time where we were coming off of not a perfect game, but a fun game, right? And you were the first one to do it. Like you're like, nope, this is not good enough for me. But why do you think people keep going back to pre-patch FIFA 18 as the best of all time? Because I see this all the time.
Oh my god, it was absolutely horrible. I don't know what people are talking about. Like pre-patch FIFA 18 was absolutely horrible. It was like the worst shit I've ever played in my life. It was so bad. Like every game finished 10-9. Oh, it's because you can't defend. No, it's because the game was shit. You know, it was useless. It was the worst shit I've ever played. And people say that FIFA 18 pre-patch was a good game. Wow, it's just I don't even know.
That was the beginning of the changing of the paradigm, and the actual game sense was still kind of there, but that was a big shift. And actually, if someone told me, if they watched me, I don't see why you're good. At first, like in the past, I would have been like, yo, what the hell, bro? But now I would be like, I'd be happy, right? Because in my head, I'm like, that's right. You can't copy this. Like, you can't be like, oh yeah. Like what? Because a lot of people, I got a lot of comments now on YouTube saying, you're scoring goals by passing the ball. Like, they're all confused. But
what is the sorcerer?
You're not doing the bridge, and you don't just get the ball to the striker and spam a skill to get the half yard every single time. And it's like, yeah, I don't do that. I score 120 goals a week and doing that. I get I don't get 0 free goals, but like the percentage is very different. I remember that video we did together sort of on my channel. You sent me your clips, and it was the whole how many are good, how many are bad. Like that's the percentages of the red goals that I get this year compared to others are just like so low. And it also comes down to like if you don't play 4-4-2, you don't get free goals. Like the turn and shoot. Yeah. It's crazy.
I mean, it's a crazy game. It's a crazy game. Crazy times. I mean, that's why like I've tried to take a step back from competing. I still love competing in our national league, and I lost the deciding penalty shootout in the E-Club World Cup. We were so out-teamed, and in the deciding game, it went to a penalty shootout, and we pretty much lost because I was shooting in the middle, and his goalkeeper was saving it with his feet while he was going the other way. Complete bullshit, you know. But we were so close to being top 14 in Europe, which is crazy to me. But I'm trying to take a step back because content creation is more fun. And I'm not talking about doing player pick upgrades for 3 hours and opening other gold 3 rewards, because that's not content. That's just boring. That's a waste of time, you know. Doing stuff in the game. We're talking gameplay stuff. That's a lot of fun still, you know, and that's why I love playing this game, but it's definitely not the same thing anymore. I don't know anyone who was playing 2 years ago. Not even 2 years ago. All my friends, we were still playing FIFA. No one's playing it anymore. They all quit in November this year. They're like, no, I'm not taking another year of this shit. You know?
Yeah. What do you think is harder, becoming a pro FIFA player or content creation?
Content creation, for sure, because you have to have a personality to do that. You know, you need to do something nobody else is doing, and becoming a good FIFA player is just the opposite. It's just try to copy what other people are doing these days. That's the way it is.
True. Weird question, because it's not easy to make it so black and white, but a lot of people think this way because that's what they have, right? They see like, oh yeah, these are the ranks. We got gold, silver, elite, and I stand here, right? And that's how they view the game. But if you have to view it that way, do you think there is a baseline level you have to be good enough to be a pro? For example, if you're not gold 1 by 16, forget about it. Would you measure it in any way like that?
Nah, I mean, I can go back to the Tom example. He wasn't in gold 1 a year ago, you know, and he's one of the very best players in the world right now. Which says a lot about the game. So I wouldn't be too worried. But I mean, like, I'm not saying that everyone can become a great FIFA player, but it's all about abusing mechanics. And if you put down enough time into it, you're going to become at least a top 100 player. I'm not saying you're going to be winning the World Cup, but getting to the top 200 it's no problem if you practice enough.
What would you tell if there's like a young kid interested, like, I want to become a pro FIFA player, I want to get into FIFA esports? What would you say?
I would strongly advise them not to. There's no money. It's all corrupt. The game is shit. You know, the community is toxic. I wouldn't recommend it. But I mean, it's a lot of fun at times too.
True. I mean, if you get the perfect amalgamation of that fun experience, I feel like it's an unrivaled feeling of motivation to be like, let's see what we can do.
I mean, like, I used to be playing a lot of StarCraft back in the days. And I had a friend in high school, and he was playing StarCraft, so I wanted to try it with him. And I just loved playing a game like that, which is 100% skill based. Have you ever played StarCraft?
I haven't, but I used to watch people play it, like in my school.
Okay, yeah, it's an amazing esports. FIFA is a terrible esports because it's very AI based. You know, in StarCraft, you have the best player in the world, and you could clearly see why he was winning a game. That's not what it's like in FIFA. And that's why I don't advise you to get into FIFA, because I was saying you can practice as much as you want. You can be practicing all of your skill moves and all of that. But then it all comes down to your connection in the game. And if you're lucky, you could get a penalty, I don't know, or a lucky bounce, you score a corner, whatever. And that's going to stop you from achieving what you want. Especially, like, as I was saying, you know, just 3 weeks ago, we lost the chance to be top 14 in Europe because of a penalty shootout. Come on, you know.
I think at that point, it's just like, I would do at least, even golden goal would be a little bit better than penalties at that point.
Yeah,
especially in a game.
In esports, come on, penalties.
It's like, I feel like there's this notion that there's a bigger skill gap now in penalties because of head movement and all this stuff.
Head movement is not a skill gap if everyone knows about it. It's not a skill gap. Well, and it's more random than it used to be, because you could be aiming 90% of your circle within the goal, and then the AI decides that you will miss it and hit the post.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. You could be lucky and unlucky in penalties too. It's just not a skill gap based game, you know? But I mean, it's more entertaining for the few players who actually watch the esports. You know, I don't know if you felt that way too, but it feels like the interest for tournaments from the average crowd this year has just vanished. I don't know if it's because they're not doing events anymore, but something has definitely happened.
I mean, I think the peak of event interest was Tech's FIFA 18, but that was only because FIFA 17 was, in my opinion, a success relative to everything else in the FUT Champs era. So it was like riding the high, right? Yep. But the gameplay was actually worse, which is why, in my opinion, there was less interest in 19. Now, you could tell me about viewership all you want, but the qualitative approach tells me that drops were not enabled on EA Sports streams in FIFA 17 and 18. People were watching out of pure curiosity, right?
Yeah. And I mean, people would watch that in FIFA 17 because they wanted to get better. They wanted to see what the pros were doing, you know, to be that great.
Why you feel so hard done by the format that didn't even give you a fair shot at succeeding is because the clout you got out of a great FIFA 17 performance made careers. I remember Principe had like 800 Twitter followers. Wins that, flies to 10K. You win. Yep. The last Italian guy who just won the thing is still below 1,000 followers.
Yeah,
like
people have stopped caring.
No one cares. It's just nobody cares, and I feel bad for the, you know, if you succeed now and you don't get reap the rewards, but at the same time, if there's a time where no one should care, it's now. And so personally, on a personal level, I'm like, whatever. It's like,
which is so interesting. I mean, like, especially during Corona now, like, this should have been our shot, you know, developing. And it's just gone the opposite way, you know. Of course, an event is going to make it easier and it's going to create a better production. But, like, people just don't care who's the best at bridging or step overing. It's just not. People care more about, you know, building the right squad, because that's what FIFA Ultimate Team is about. Because the gameplay has just become so bad that people don't even want to play the game anymore. People are not playing the game. It's been like that since FIFA 19. You know, most of the content creation was done in the menus because the game was so boring to play. Well, it wasn't necessarily boring, FIFA 19, but it was horrible to play. It's just shifted the focus, you know, and people just don't care.
I agree completely. And, you know, I see the other side, the devil's advocate's like approach to this is like saying, well, the only reason 17 was better in terms of that hype and culture was because it was the very first one in the Foot Champs era. But I feel like it wouldn't have lasted that long. You're always going to have the sweats who are interested in every FIFA, and that's never going to change. But the difference I saw that year is that if there was a epic game, I remember Principe versus Gorilla, people were talking about, guys, look at who Principe selects in that situation. Look at him playing the 4-3-3 second variation. What's he doing? Now, it's so easy to see what a lot of these guys are doing. So when someone like me watches, who would be a fan of the esport, I'm like, okay, like this guy's obviously good at this and that and a bunch of these fundamentals, but I know the ceiling for those fundamentals is low, and the difference in his gameplay is that he's canceling all these moves. He's just creating, he's doing these. So it's like, I'm not interested. So how are you going to get someone interested who wants to play?
And that's why somebody like Kurt can become so big, because he represents that difference from the other players. Because today, all the players they're all pretty much the same. They're all super polite, and they say bro on Twitter after having a conversation for like 2 minutes, and they play the same. They don't have anything interesting going on about them. But Kurt had that. He had some sort of personality. He brought some sort of entertainment to the scene, and that's why he's so popular. Into a very blank scene. That's what he gave us, I suppose. Even though he gave me a lot of stick.
Did he? Oh my god. There's also
I mean, he's I think he's kind of dorky, but I mean that's why people love him.
I think as well what he did well alongside many players. I mean, you do it yourself when you get 30-0 playing a basic style, but that's the thing. When you can see someone get 30-0 pressing the most basic functions, it makes you wonder, whoa, like what's going on here, right? Because that's like, it kind of reminds me of that. Who was it? Ibra who said, "What you can do with a football, I can do with an orange," or something.
Yeah,
like that's what it reminds me.
like that.
So, and that's what I really miss. On the flip side, though, as a top, when you are a top 100 ranked player, how would you describe to someone who's not into FIFA what it's like being top 100 caliber player playing Foot Champs and losing to a gold player, and their reaction being, it's normal. The Real Madrid can lose to Granada as well. What would you say to that?
I mean, I don't even know where to start. Or just a shit game. Should have done some proper esports instead. But I mean, where do you even start? Like, of course, you should be able to lose against a player if he's outplaying you. Yeah, and I hate that, because whenever I'm uploading, I always get comments like, "Lucas, you never admit that he was the better player," because he's not. Because there are like, I don't know, 40 players in the world that are better than me at the game. It's very unlikely that I'm going to match them for champions. I'm sure, yes, they can be even with me, but a gold 1 player is not going to outplay me in a game of FIFA. It's not going to happen. And if they do win, yes, it's going to be bullshit. Yes, it's going to be a lot of luck. Of course, that's what happens.
Yeah, things have to fall into place per se. I got those comments a lot too, but it's just
stupid. Of course, he's not better than me. What kind of a comment is that? Just because he wins doesn't mean he's better. If he scores a corner, and that's his one shot, and his goalkeeper saves everything for him, is he a better player? No, he's not.
That's also, I don't really understand the mentality. Like, I get a lot of comments, "Oh, but you scored this but didn't complain about that goal." And I was like, bro, there's plenty of examples where I'll score a bad goal and I'll say it, or there's plenty of examples where I say nothing when I concede. But a lot of people just, if they say that, it's because they're just there to prove you wrong. They have no other intention.
They're just trying to bring you down.
Yeah,
that's all they want to do. And they're not exposing themselves to an opinion whatsoever. We call them skeptics, right? The Roman philosopher. They just want to be there to just question everything without saying anything themselves, and yes, that is an important part of it. But if you're not exposing yourself to any sort of opinion whatsoever, you shouldn't have the right to be skeptic either.
What's your take on educational content on YouTube in terms of getting better at FIFA? Do you think it's as useful as people sort of flock to it because people flock to it like it's the second coming of Jesus, like it's going to transform them. And do you also think it makes the game worse? Like, do you think it's made the general population sweatier?
It doesn't make the game worse. It exposes the game. You know,
Right.
if people get good at doing step overs, it just exposes the game to how vulnerable it is to that kind of a skill move. So no, I definitely think that educational content should be on YouTube. You know, just because it should all be down to decision making, not about technical stuff. It's just we're just exposing the game to why it's horrible. You know, so whenever Boris is he's pretty much doing a passing tutorial, and he's saying like, you pass with X, and then people go crazy. You know, he gets like 1 million views. It's just, yeah, you can do that all you want, but as soon as people start uploading the step over and stuff, I do understand that people get upset. You know, especially if they're the only ones who are using it. And I mean, this entire 5 at the back meta going on right now, it's just exposing the game. You know, if a 5 at the back is that, you know, effective, something is wrong with the game.
For sure. With your background, because I recently did a series which was actually a lot tougher to sort of get going, just because you know how YouTube content works. Like something that's well thought out is not going to perform as well as other things. But basically, I took a very pragmatic approach to finding the perfect setup for myself in a 4-3-3, and I sort of like tinkered. Do you have anything specific that you do when you find your custom tactics? Like, do you have a set system? Do you like, I need to change this? Like, how do you know when you found a tactic that fits you? Obviously, I know a lot of high-level players play pretty balanced, but like, do you never be like, maybe long balls with maybe 7 or 8, like, and what kind of like, how do you decide which instruction to put? Is it just pure trial and error?
I mean, I got to be honest. I've barely changed my tactics since FIFA 19.
Yeah.
I know what kind of game I want to play. I want to play a very narrow style play, and that's pretty uncommon. If anything, that makes me different from most pro players. So I think I only have 1 or 2 in width, in attack, and even in defense. So I want to be playing a narrow game because I want to be defending in the middle. I want to be attacking in the middle because that's where the goal is. And I mean, other than that, it's just instructions stay forward on my cam. But that's pretty much it. I mean, it doesn't make that much of a difference. Instructions, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't really try out a lot of difference because I think people are mistaken there when it comes to formations and stuff like that. Usually it's not really about the formation, it's about your decision making within the formation. So a cam could be playing very differently in a 4-2-3-1 depending on the decisions that you're making rather than the instructions you're putting on him. So if I'm playing a pro game and I'm down 1-0, I feel like I need to change something. I just pause and start thinking, okay, what kind of decisions do I need to change rather than what kind of tactics do I need to change? Because I mean, as you were saying, like the balanced tactics are working really, really well this year for most players.
Yeah, no, I find that interesting as well because the decision making is everything. But there are moments when I felt like it's not that the tactic made me, but sometimes you just fall on something and you're like, this gives me more solidity. The same way you kind of dropped the 4-3-2-1 and went back to 4-2-3-1, just because I remember you telling me it just gives you the certainties that the 4-3-2-1 doesn't. Sometimes you find something that just suits you a little bit more relative to the game. So it's always interesting to see. Like, but it's a common denominator is a lot of players at that level always say, yeah, I just play balanced.
Yeah, I mean, I play fast build up and just a narrow style play because I like to counterattack and use 3 to 4 players just to counterattack. And I feel like I'm getting the most out of my play style that way.
So then you would suggest anyone who is like trying to find a tactic rather than copying or like tinkering too much, think about what you want, put it in there, and then just sort of
Yeah,
to keep it.
Yeah, but it's all about the decision making too, you know.
Yeah.
You can't expect the entire tactics to work around you, but like tactics in general in FIFA is something that I'm not really that interested in, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because it's stupid. Like I still laugh about this. You know, on CDMs and CMs, the default option for their area of covering is wide.
Yeah.
How stupid is that?
Yeah. It's
I don't even know where to start. Like, who put that in the game for 3 straight years? I even told them when I was in Vancouver, hey, you got a problem here. You know, you should probably change this. And they were like, yeah, we'll look into it. But they still made the decision. Yeah, like central midfielders, they usually defend out wide.
it's there to cover like the default fullbacks. If they're gonna move out the way, the CMs literally play left back. Well, until they're back, and so 4-3-2-1 is unusable. But like last time, I want to end it with a quick fire. I want to ask you, in your opinion, I'm gonna say something like, who is the best defender in FIFA esports history? It could be anyone you've seen or played against, right? It doesn't matter. You don't have to, like, if you saw someone and you're like, he's the best, all right? So I'm just gonna ask you one by one, and you give me your most honest answer. You could say yourself, you could say anyone you haven't played against, but you're just so sure because you saw their gameplay, all right?
Okay.
All right, for you, at their peak, who's the best defender in FIFA esports of all time?
Gorilla.
I like that. Who's the best attacker?
Tex.
Your favorite player to watch?
Oof. That's interesting. Favorite player to watch?
At any point.
Yeah, Tex at his peak, probably.
Most clutch?
Even. Boros Legend.
Most consistent?
I'll probably go with Mo Alba on that one.
Most, who would you define as a pioneer / revolutionary? It could be in the scene, in terms of gameplay, anything.
Oh, that was a good one. I'd probably go with Tex again. I mean, what he's done. I mean, nobody's ever been that dominant as he was. You know, people would win one tournament, then not get very far in the next one. But he's just won and won and won. It wasn't just by a goal. You know, he was crushing his opponents.
Yeah,
it was astonishing.
Who is like the tactician in the scene? The guy who's like, this guy's gonna have 3 billion changes depending on his opponent.
Dirty Mike. He's I mean, I've known him for years, and as I was saying, like, I don't think the tactical side makes too much of a difference in the game. And I think it's just silly when people are like, yeah, I want to move this one bar that way and it will make such a difference in my gameplay. No. Sorry, you know.
Your biggest inspiration?
Biggest inspiration would probably be Boros Legend, for sure. You know, he did a lot for the scene in FIFA, and when it comes to his content creation, he's the reason that I started doing YouTube and stuff myself. So he's always been somebody that I've been looking up to, even though I've been beating him. You know, he's been making a lot of right decisions, and his brand building has been amazing.
I remember seeing his there's a video on his channel. I think you played him in some sort of cash
Swedish
something.
Championship.
Yeah, it was I'm pretty sure he was struggling a lot in those best of threes. I think I was watching that recently.
I mean, like, back in the days, I mean, he'd win the big tournaments. Like, I would win 7 or 8 big tournaments. But during the final day, like, when we were, like, competing in the biggest tournament, he would beat me, you know?
Yeah.
He'd always he would always win the big tournaments, you know? It was the same in the Las Vegas tournament that he won, which probably made his brand, you know? A lot of people don't know this, but he was playing as a Swedish player. I think it was in, like, last of 32 or something like that. And he was down 1-0 in the 92nd minute, and the opponent was having a corner. And then he was just going to pass it, you know, short on the corner. But he accidentally skipped the replay, So the corner, he passed the corner, and Ivan got the counterattack, got a penalty in the 93rd minute, and equalized, and then won on penalties in that game.
Yeah,
Tiny margin.
That makes sense why you said he's the most clutch. What's in your opinion for you the most memorable performance you've seen in FIFA esports?
Performance. Wow. I mean, I don't even watch it, man.
Yeah. Nothing even from like the earlier days?
Oh, I remember. I can't even. Was he called Adamant? I can't remember what he was called. He's like this Persian guy. He in FIFA 15. He's absolutely insane. It's like back then you didn't know about players from other parts of the world, So I went to ESWC in Paris, and I went there, and I was scheduled to play against this Iranian guy in FIFA 15, and he played with a 3-5-2 Chelsea team. It was like the most insane player I've ever played against, and I think he won the tournament eventually. He was amazing.
Do you think, obviously, again, this is similar to the last one, so if you can't give an answer, it's fine. But the biggest, in your opinion, pro shock result, the match that after you're like, I did not expect that guy to win. I could tell you mine if you want. Okay, go for it.
Chian, I was telling you about that in Paris, FIFA 15. No, 17. Been to Paris quite a lot competing. But anyways, he was in the group stage. He was ranked 3rd, and I lost against that French player, and then Aigun, I think I was playing him. I drew against him, and I was playing as Xian. I thought he was by far the worst player in the group, in our group of 4, and he won the entire PlayStation side after a game. It was crazy.
Yeah, and if possible, who do you think is the greatest of all time in FIFA?
Tex. 100%.
Yeah.
I can't see anyone even being close.
For reference, just out of curiosity, I did these exact same ones, and the answers are a lot different, so that was interesting. For the GOAT, though, he did. Nightwatch had a lot more like Nicholas and like Razik, sort of like newer generation FUT Champs Cup players. But for the GOAT, he put Dasari because of just
I don't
winning.
even know that much about him. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's difficult to. I mean, it's all very impressive what they've done, all of them, but it's just not the same when you're not European. I think because it's so much harder qualifying for the events than it is in other regions. So yeah.
All right, well, guys, last chance for a couple of questions before we let Lukasinho go coach. He's got tactics to brew up. Greatest game of all time for you? Someone asked. Like
in
FIFA
football
game.
or FIFA? I don't know. Sorry, man. Like, I haven't been watching that many games.
No, I mean like FIFA title.
Oh, the title has to be 16 or 17. 17 probably. I mean, everything, from like, it was also brand new, as well. I mean, we all remember the Footmas from FIFA 17, and the Foot birthday was absolutely amazing too.
Yeah.
From FIFA 17, but the gameplay obviously being the big part of it.
One thing you would change immediately about gameplay?
One?
Just one. He said chat is asking for one.
Okay, it has to be the passing or the shooting. I mean, two quite big things when it comes to football, wouldn't you say? Probably be passing.
Someone asked how it felt to sign for AIK as a Hammarby fan.
I mean, I grew up, going to Hammarby games and stuff, but I've been coaching in AIK for 6 years, I've been coaching in AIK and I've been a player for 2 years. So it's just like started, changing a long time ago. You know, I was always a Chelsea supporter. I didn't really care much about Swedish football, but now, I mean, I got a season ticket to Oiko and I go to all the games, so it's pretty easy.
Fantastic, dude. I won't take any more of your time. I appreciate you. That was great. Some great
Thank you.
insights, some funny stories. Where can people find you?
I mean, Twitter, YouTube. I need to get back on my English YouTube. I'll promise to do that next week or something. But Twitter is probably the easiest way to find everything. If you want to find a reference to my other platforms, mostly angry on Twitter if I am in person. You know, like it's just all negative things, you know. But yeah, I'll try to get back into streaming and stuff pretty soon too. It's just I've been having a nose problem, so I haven't really been able to breathe when streaming, and it's been annoying for the viewers too.
Oh yeah, that's yeah.
But it's gotten better lately, so I'll probably get back into it.